Hello and welcome, my name is Céline, and in today's video I'll be sharing a very fun list of patterns that are suitable to use up those yarn leftovers and scraps that are most likely inundating your yarn stash. It's the scary truth about being a knitter that once you're done working on a project, you'll have some yarn leftovers, and in my experience, the yarn leftovers build up and start inundating my stash, and then that stash starts giving me anxiety. The problem about that is that yarn leftovers come in very awkward lengths and quantities, so it's quite hard to know what to use them for. Hopefully today's list will open up some options for you so that we can all finally venture on a magnificent stash busting voyage together. I actually only have about 30 minutes to film today, which is not going to be enough for everything that I want to cover. So this video will take a slightly different format. I'll be taking you guys along with me in the next couple of days. I'll be talking about the different patterns while I run whatever errand I have to run. So don't mind the background and the location and my clothes changing every 3 minutes. In fact, it might make the video a little bit more dynamic. So let's begin with the list of scrap yarn projects. The actual reason why I thought of this video to begin with was because one of my next projects on queue is the Olymp sweater vest by Lepool. I must say that Lepool is a really good designer for scrap yarn projects. She has quite a few, and I'm going to list a couple in a second, but this one is the one that stands out to me the most, and it is the one that I'm actually going to make. Garter stitch creates a really interesting choreography of colors when you switch them out, and I think that's super cute. It's an extra detail that makes it very painterly and artsy. I feel like one of the main struggles with scrap yarn projects is that obviously it's pretty hard to maintain the same gauge throughout since you're using different yarns, and I think one of the easiest ways to tackle this issue is to work an Aran weight project, because you can use your Aran weight yarns, but then you can also use the fingering weights and the lace weights and hold them together to obtain that gauge. So there is more possibility, more flexibility, and you just have more yarns available. So I just love the Olymp sweater vest because I envision it being such an efficient way to just stash bust. This pattern will also be my first time working a pattern horizontally, so you don't work it top down or bottom up, you work it from one side to the other, which will be pretty fun and interesting. I guess one pain of this sort of pattern is that you're just gonna weave in a lot of ends, and I wonder if I'll be able to just weave them in the same way I catch my floats with color work, if that makes sense. Maybe that way I can cut down some work with weaving in my ends, because I envision that being a little bit of a pain. 100% going to copy Lepool's version with a double knitted button band in butter yellow because it's so cute, and I have a butter yellow cotton by Drops, the saffron. I have quite a lot of it, so I'll be using that for my double knitting and most likely be holding it double because it's a fingering weight, I think. Obviously for this vest you gotta pick some buttons, and I have quite a few eclectic buttons in my stash that I picked out. I'm very attracted to crazy buttons when I go out to festivals and yarn shops. Those are the ones that I gravitate towards. I have this one pair from Lilliput White that I got from Unravel Festival, and they're covered in yarn scraps. They are so crazy and funky. They've got so many colors, and I would love to consider them for this vest. Obviously, I think it should come down to me finishing my vest and then placing the buttons on top to see if they actually work, because it might be a situation where it's a little bit too overboard and I don't want it to be too crazy, right? So who knows, maybe once I get there, I'll realize that a more simple button will suit it best. Ooh, dog. Dove va la mamma? Dove va? When I was researching patterns for this video, I actually came across quite a few designers whose general design style falls really well under the scrap yarn aesthetic category, if we will. One of these includes Rose Knitwear, who is a designer that I've loved ever since I started knitting. She really comes out with cutting edge designs. They're truly different than any others out there. She focuses on texture and color. Her patterns are very eclectic when it comes to shades, and this just means that Rose Knitwear's designs just lend themselves to stash busting beautifully. A pattern from her that I've been working on for a while that's really more of a side project for me, I pick it up every now and again when I want something super fresh like a palette cleanser, is her scrap pillowcase that she has in her new knitting book. Literally the ultimate scrap yarn project. I say this because this pattern suits any sort of scrap yarn. Even the smallest, shortest bits of scrap yarn that you have, you can use them for this project. Doesn't matter the weight, doesn't matter the length, it doesn't matter the color. It will work for the scrap pillow. How good is that? You just cut pieces of yarn and then you alternate rows of stockinette and then color rows where you use the main yarn to secure these little bits into place. And then these scraps get locked into the fabric and it's the wrong side that shows all the ends. You can have the most fun and the most efficient stash bust of your life. What's also great is that you can use scrap yarn for the main yarn too, because it's not going to show beneath those ends anyway. So I'm just holding random bits of yarn together to obtain the right gauge. It's also a design that I envision myself falling in love with if I were to see it at a homeware store. Out of all of Rose Knitwear's designs, I believe this one is the most flexible. There are other ones that are also really, really good for scrap yarn, but maybe only if you have more quantities of it. For example, I made her orbit hat and I knit that out of 2 little remnants that I had of super chunky yarn. So for each color, I had just under 1 skein and I had even some left. So that would be perfect if that's your situation in your stash. I had an absolute blast making that hat, by the way. I think I made it in 24 hours. The stitch is so engaging and fun, and that's the case for pretty much all of her patterns because she just opts for this insane texture that you have most likely never knit before. So it's just so exciting and new. I think quite a few of the good scrap yarn projects from Rose comes from her knit book. Another good one that she has is a hood that I can't recall the name. I'll just put it on the screen, but that's also made in 2 colors, either in DK weight or fingering weight, I'm not sure. But these sort of projects where you have more than 1 color are perfect for those awkward yarn quantities that you might have in your stash. Like, what are you going to do with 2 skeins of that and 3 skeins of that? You can't make a sweater, you can't make a tee. This is the perfect thing for it. The first time I walked into Beautiful Knitter's yarn shop, there was this one sample of the Sea Glass tee by Wool and Pine. I fell in love with the collection by this designer. I think she has sweaters, hats, and mittens as well. And a project like this shows you that with yarn scraps, you're not limited to something like garter stitch. It's very simple color work. You just alternate 1 stitch with 1 color and the next stitch with the other color. This pattern specifically, I think, looks very magical and outstanding if you use hand-dyed yarn. The effect that you get with that alternation is truly splendid and one of a kind. I also love that there's a whole collection so you can really decide which pattern to go for based on how much scrap yarn you have. I have these 2 skeins of Bird Street yarn, hand-dyed yarn that I got from Unravel Festival the first time I went, and one of them is a cream base with some green specks and the other is more of a light mint green, and I got the 2 for the sole purpose of using them together in alternated color work like that. I think I probably had the sea glass in mind when I picked it up. Obviously, you don't have to use hand-dyed yarn. It's just a recommendation that I give you because I've seen it made in hand-dyed yarn and it is incredible. But obviously you can work it with whatever yarn you have and you don't necessarily have to only use 2 colors. If you were to use more than 2 colors, you can start out with color A and B and then switch color A. For a while you work B and C and then you remove B, you introduce color D. So I think that would create a really interesting gradient situation. Another approach to this could be using 1 solid color and then alternating it with a variegated or hand-dyed yarn so it doesn't have to be entirely hand-dyed. You know, you can really play around depending on what you enjoy. And then to tie it all together, I would probably do the ribbing in a solid color that reprises a shade in the body of the project. This is the sort of piece that really makes knitting so special because it's something that you would never be able to find out there in a store. I've not made a sea glass piece myself, but I promise you I've seen people be obsessed with that sample of Beautiful Knitters. Everyone's just so mesmerized by it because it is truly magical. My brother's here with me. Let's see what colors he would make the sea glass in.
Orange and teal.
He would do orange and teal. That's a very good shout. Quite out there, but we love that. Oh look, a plane is departing. Taking off. Whoa. This would also be a really good first colorwork project if you've never done it before and if you're a bit scared. This one is the most simple colorwork you can probably go for because it's just 1 stitch with 1 color and the next stitch with the second color. It could be a nice opportunity for you to practice your tension with colorwork. I also love that it's inspired by sea glass. The whole concept of getting things in nature and translating them to a fabric is so cool. Rose Knitwear does that a lot, by the way. In her newsletter, she shows a lot of pictures of things that she finds around. For example, even like a floor or tiles, and then she finds a stitch that replicates it. I think that's so cool and a very intelligent way to find inspiration. Look at this beautiful cherry blossom. I don't even know if it's a cherry blossom. Everyone is in Japan this time of year. I wish I could be there as well, but I guess London in April is the next best thing. I've already talked about Rose Knitwear, but I just want to get her back into the conversation because she's just so good and she's just got so many good patterns. Little highlight goes to her Kaleidoscope cardigan, which is super cool. I showed it to my friends, my friend Gaia, who was in my A Knitter in Milan video. And she mentioned that it kind of reminds her of the London Underground carpet seats, which I think is pretty funny, but low-key kind of cool. If you've gone to the Museum of Transport, I think, there's a little shop in Covent Garden, and they sell tote bags and notebooks and pillowcases in those same carpets, like carpeted patterns that they have on the London Underground seats. If that's what you're into, you could literally pick out the same exact colors as one of the tube lines and recreate it with this pattern. I think that'd be really cool. I think I'd do it in the Elizabeth line colors, maybe the District. Another one by Rose Knitwear is her, I think it's called Mix Up Blanket. This also includes garter, but it's a little bit different because it's not one row in one color and then the next in another color. It's bigger stripes in garter, so it's sleeker. And I love the play on directions where she starts out knitting one way and then picks up for a new section of the blanket on the sides of that to work in another direction. And I feel like you can keep on adding to your blanket as you get new yarn scraps this way, because you start at the center and then you work your way out. So it could be like a never-ending project that you could start using pretty soon and then just keep on building and keep on using as you go. How are we doing? Mr. Woozy here is crouched down like a little boiled egg. Are you getting any cramps? A fantastic place to find more scrap yarn project ideas is actually Skillshare, who is the kind sponsor of today's video. Skillshare is the ultimate learning community platform. It's designed by creatives for creatives. It houses thousands of classes led by industry experts covering the most wide range of topics, from crafts, illustration, photography, cooking, and so much more. Browsing on Skillshare gave me the incredible idea of using my yarn scraps for something other than knitting, and that is weaving. On Skillshare, there's this class by Amy Plant called Weaving for Fun, Mini Tapestry for Beginners, in which she shows, first of all, how to make a DIY loom out of cardboard, and then how to use your yarn scraps to make a wall decoration. I am so into the idea of weaving my yarn scraps to use them up to create a nice little tapestry. I had no clue that weaving was so DIYable. I was convinced that with no loom, I couldn't go anywhere. And the fact that I could even make a loom right now without having to leave my house first to buy stuff for it is crazy to me. In the class, Amy begins taking you through how to set up your loom and then moves on to familiarizing with different stitches and then teaches you everything that goes behind creating your own tapestry. And I love tapestries because they're like a little abstract painting that adds so much character to a space. And it's probably one of the best and most effortless and efficient ways to use up your yarn scraps. It's just a perfect project for this. If you would like to learn about weaving and many other forms of creativity, you can join the Skillshare platform, and the first 500 people to use the link in my description box will receive 1 month free trial of Skillshare. Did any of you know that the 52 Weeks of Scrap Yarn book exists? I had no idea, and listen, Line Publishing is super famous for their 52 Weeks collections or series, so I was very pleasantly surprised to find it on Ravelry. So I decided to flip through the patterns and pick my favorite one. The one I'm selecting for you guys today is called Ortensia. I'm not sure how to pronounce it because Ortensia means hydrangea in Italian, so I'm just gonna call it Ortensia. It's the most stunning tote worked in a linen stitch. It's a stitch I'd never seen before, and it's so beautiful. It doesn't look knitted, it looks woven. You can tell from the structure of the stitch that it's a very resilient fabric that results from it, something super sturdy that will be able to withstand all of the stuff you put in your totes. Let's be honest, I love a little bag, but there's nothing like a tote. It's so beautiful. I think it works so well with the scrap yarn look. And I also love that it includes a different medium other than knitting to create the straps. In the sample photos, I think it's leather straps that they attach to the bag. And first of all, that will provide further sturdiness because a knitted strap will probably just give in time and not really hold up well. Despite the overall look of the bag being a little bit rustic, more painterly and crafty, I think the integration of the leather straps really tightens it up and strengthens the intent of it. Really good news, this is a worsted weight yarn project, 19 stitch gauge, so it probably works up really fast as well, which We always love some instant gratification. I've mentioned this earlier in the video, but I love worsted weight scrap yarn projects because it means that you can also hold your lighter weight yarns together to hit gauge, which is less limiting and allows you to roam free with your imagination and what yarns you pick. I reckon this pattern would be such a good universal gift for someone when you really want to knit something, but you don't know what their size is or what sort of thing they would like. A tote bag would be so appreciated by so many different kinds of people. Even the 52 weeks of scrap yarn book would be such a good gift for a knitter. I would appreciate it a lot. If I were to make this, I would also commission some artists on Etsy to create my own bespoke cork tag to sew onto the bag, just because it's so nicely finished with the leather strap that I would also like to go the extra mile and complete that beautiful finished look with the tag. I wonder if this could be a good bag to use macrame cord as well. If you're worried about your knitted fabric being a bit too loose, macrame would be a really good alternative. Probably a little bit tougher on the hands to knit with, but look at her, she's beautiful. Oh wow. So yeah, some food for thought. Could knit with macrame cord, and potentially if you don't like the straps that are sort of suggested in the photo of the sample, you could try some macrame straps as well, but that would be more up to you to come up with a modification and find the right knot for it, because it's not in the pattern. I'm just waiting for my mum to get ready before we go grocery shopping, and my dog wants to go inside. While I wait for her, I thought I'd talk about another pattern by Le Pool, and this one is the Apollo bag. I don't know for a fact, but most likely this one's heavily inspired by the very famous Miu Miu crochet bag that was super trendy, I think, last year. I wouldn't usually gravitate towards a knitted bag because most of the time knit fabric is a little bit too flimsy and not sturdy enough to carry all your little bits. But the reason this one stood out to me, and is one that I would actually consider even on the practical level, is because the straps are made out of macrame. So it's made up of knots and something that's more integral and structured. And that basically gets rid of the structural faults in a typical knitted bag. I've always been a comfort girly. I've always prioritized comfort over aesthetic, but it's crazy how much that's true as I'm getting older. As time goes by, I need my jeans to be baggier and baggier just to be more comfortable, and the same applies to my bags. Every day I want a smaller bag just to be comfortable and not have to carry too much, and this little Apollo bag satisfies those requirements for me perfectly because it's so tiny and cute. As I mentioned, I love a colorful garter, so it really ticks that box for me. If I were to make this, I probably would consider modifying the straps a little bit. I think she ties little knots when she changes colors throughout the strap, and that creates more of a messy look that I would potentially try to sleek up a bit, trying to make the strap a little cleaner and find a way to transition from one color to the other that's more seamless. In case I wouldn't be able to do that while color changing throughout the strap, I would probably opt for a single color strap so that I can just use one strand without having to interrupt it, and then I can keep the strap looking clean. I feel like this bag would be a really nice statement piece. You can dress it up and dress it down, pair it with something really casual, you know, baggy jeans and like a big graphic tee or something like that. But then I also really envision it during a night out with a little black dress. I mean, I don't know what I'm talking about because I can't remember the last time I had a night out. In fact, I don't even know if I've ever worn a little black dress in my life because I'm that much of a grandma. But that doesn't mean I can see the vision. And I think this bag would be super easy to style because of the colors. And see, this is the nice thing about all of these scrap yarn projects, is that they kind of go with every color in the world. So you don't even have to think about it. It's just effortless and trendy all at once. I was watching True Lane's knitting podcast, and she's been working on the Excavation pattern, which is a throw/blanket. And honestly, this is probably the second pattern that I would most definitely make out of this list. The reason behind this is that it doesn't require you to weave in the ends. That is such a major selling point for me. The Excavation blanket is knitted from one corner diagonally all the way up to the opposite corner. And at the side of it, you just leave the end. That's why you don't have to weave it in. And I think that's amazing. Essentially, once you get to the midpoint, you flip the project over and you kind of knit that way so that then the ends are on the opposite way. So you'll end up with a square or a rectangle that has ends on one side and the opposite side. There is a little bit of a limiting factor where it's for fingering weight yarn, but what consoles me is that fingering weight is actually one of the most common weights, I would say. I mean, of course, you don't have to make the blanket in fingering weight yarn. It doesn't have to fit you. It's not a sweater or a t-shirt, so you can totally just make it into an Aran weight or even a lace weight if you want, you know, whatever you please. This design is another one that really lets you play freely with the different lengths of scrap yarn that you may have. So you can use something really short up to something as long as you want. Now let's take a little second to appreciate all of the Easter eggs. There are so many Easter eggs. It makes me very happy. I'm gonna pass, sadly. I think it was Truline herself that suggested this could be also a really nice pillowcase if that's something that's more up your alley. Oh my goodness, I forgot to mention one of the best things about this pattern. It's free. I'm so sorry for interrupting once again, but this deserves its own moment. This grocery shop is Selunga. Famously makes focaccine. These gals right here. They're very famous, they're very good, and I never leave a Selunga without at least one bag of them. Hopefully my mic is gonna last because it just died on me and now I'm power banking it, but it's defective or something. If you're in need of patterns that require very little yarn quantities, we'll go back to Lepool. She's gonna save the day again because she has the London bonnet and the frou frou hair clipper. I think Lepool makes the London bonnet with brushed alpaca. If you're someone who has made lots of projects in that, you may have the perfect yarn for this. It's nice because you can brush it and really blend in the stripy colors. Of course, it would work with any sort of yarn that hits gauge. You guys know I love me a little bonnet. I've just released my own pattern, which I guess is not super suitable for yarn scraps, but it is suitable if you have a single skein of fingering weight yarn that's hand dyed that usually comes in 100-gram skeins. I tend to collect quite a few of those skeins because that's what I like to buy as a souvenir when I go around, maybe traveling. I'll visit a yarn shop and then I'll get one of those skeins. And the Evie hood, which is my hood that I've released recently, is really good for that. But anyways, that wasn't the point. I was going to talk about the London bonnet. I love me a good little bonnet with a little tie. It's such a good adornment for the face, especially if they have a bow that you tie at the chin. It's so cute. You really don't have to try that hard. You just pop it on, you put it over your head, and once you have to transition from outdoors to indoors, you can still wear it and have it decorate your outfit just by plopping it and having it rest at the top of your back. This one would work up so fast. Instant gratification. And same goes for the frou frou clipper because it's such a small project. I bet you can make it in one sitting. It's also nice to find a project that's not the most obvious. It's not a scrap yarn blanket or pillowcase or bag. It's a clipper. Like, have you ever made a knitted clipper? Probably not. So very happy that I was able to find that. I told you, Lepool is such a good designer for scrap yarn projects. I reckon it would be quite fun to learn how to integrate the clipper into the knitted fabric, so that would be a cool little experience. Also, a really good gift knit, and you don't necessarily have to pick multiple colors. You can make it in a single color. By the way, isn't this neighborhood so stunning? It's always hard to know what to do with your mohair yarn scraps because you're limited by the weight and also by the color if you're meaning to hold it with something else. I hate to be a pattern designer repeater, but sometimes you just have to. And it's not my fault if Lepool keeps on giving in the area of scrap yarn projects. She has the Mad Stripes sweater, which is entirely made in one strand of different color mohairs. It's worked top down and really serves the purpose of using up every single last bit of yardage from your mohair scraps. The reason it stood out to me is that it does not look like all those other stripe sweaters out there. Slightly off center, the stripes on the body are divided in two different sections, and that really breaks the monotony of stripes in my opinion. It somehow softens the look of the stripes but also makes it look super artsy. I feel like it can be quite hard to use so many colors of scrap yarn to create a cohesive looking sweater, but there's something about this design with the disruption of the stripes and the texture of the mohair that really ties in everything together in a way that would be really hard to obtain without these features. Also, there's just something about one strand mohair pieces that make them look so luxurious. Anytime I wear something like that, I get so many compliments, so I definitely think this would be a lovely sweater to go for. My legs hurt from walking, so I decided to sit down at a bus stop. Pink car! Hi, Barbie! I know we're all knitters here, but I also know that many knitters know how to crochet, so I thought I'd include a crochet project as well. I found the Blossom Scarf by It Was Yarn. This one is so good because every single color, every stripe is made in a different stitch. This creates such a good texture. It's so cute. Up close, the detail of it is actually fabulous. Honestly, the individual rows in the different stitches are so cute and amazing that even as a non-scrap yarn project, this would really be incredible. So even if you have that one yarn that you love and that you envision this scarf in, just make it in that single color. But in parallel, I feel like this would also really work with different types of fibers that have really different textures in itself. So I envision it with a little bit of cotton, maybe a row of mohair, one of alpaca, one of silk. Just play up with the textures within the yarns themselves. I would pair it with a long black coat in the winter, or even a white coat. I have this one long white coat that is lined with this beautiful lavender floral silk, and I envision the scarf knitted in an array of pinks and lavenders and creams and whites, and it would look so good with this coat that I have in mind. Obviously, hoods are super trendy these days, and this scarf would be a really good contender to turn into a hood just by wrapping it around your neck and then pulling it over your head. It would look super, super cute, and we love a little two-in-one moment. Potentially, I would go even crazier and more creative. Maybe use it as a belt and wrap it around their waist, put a little knot on the side. Imagine that on those big tiered white cotton skirts that everyone wears in the summer. If you put that scarf as a belt, oh my goodness, that's so pretty. Now, taking a little break from tidying up my room, I wanted to talk about Stephen West as another incredible designer for yarn scrap projects. He's a super popular designer. He even has his own yarn shop in Amsterdam called Stephen and Penelope that I really want to visit at some point. But the first time I heard about him was when my friend Karen was knitting his painting bricks cowl. And guess what she used to knit it? Yes, her yarn scraps. When I tell you that Karen is obsessed with this cowl, it might have been a joke, but one time she told me she even displayed it in her living room for a day because that's how much she loves it. I don't know if she'll like me saying that, but she made it in these like petrol blue colors with a pop of bright pink in cashmere. I've tried wearing it and it's too good for me. I'm not worthy. No, but jokes aside, it's really incredible, and my favorite thing about it is the shape. So it's a little bit narrower at the front, and then the back is quite wide, so it really hugs the back of your head and cradles you. It looks like the most comfy and coziest little hug ever. It looks like everything I want to be wrapped in during winter. It's also knitted double, so there's no wrong side facing. It's almost knitted in a tube or something, so that you've got the double layer, so it's so warm and beautiful. And the stitch is so fun. It's the hint of life and hope that everyone needs. Just to showcase how good of a scrap yarn designer Stephen West is, I'm going to share two more designs by him that I really like. His jigsaw puzzle blanket is stunning. I love color, I love geometry. Perfect combination. He works this project in a DK weight by holding 2 strands of fingering weight yarn together. And don't you worry, I've not forgotten about socks. Every time I've made a sock, I've had so much sock yarn left over. So why not just gather all those leftover sock yarns to make a Franken sock? Stephen West's painting columns socks. They are just so fun. The colors give me life, and the color work kind of reminds me of the Kaleidoscope cardigan by Rose Knitwear that I mentioned earlier. Just how the columns are laid out. It's not exactly the same, but it's that sort of vibe. And we just can't deny that there's nothing better than a fun, funky sock to spruce out an outfit. It really puts a smile on my face whenever maybe I'm in the tube and then someone sits down, their trousers raise up a little bit and reveal this incredible sock that is just so full of character and depth and just adds to the outfit in a way that's subdued but also crazy at the same time. It's one of my favorite things to wear crazy colored socks as an accent to my seemingly subdued outfit. It's so cool. I love it. How fun it's been to go through these patterns with you. I'll be leaving this video feeling extra inspired after seeing all of that color and those innovative ways to use up my yarn scraps. A lot of the time it's hard to find excitement in your yarn stash, and that yarn that you've already used before that isn't really that shiny new thing. It's super easy to just go to the yarn shop and be blinded by yarn that you don't own and that you really want. I hope this video will help you see the magic and potential in the yarn that you already own, and hopefully you won't be too tempted to walk out and buy some more. Please leave a comment if you know of other patterns that are suitable for yarn scraps, and as always, also let me know what's currently on your needles, because you know I'm super nosy. I will go knit and edit this video, and I'll be finishing my tea, and yes, I've been subtly showing off my new portable teacup. This is my current biggest flex. It was a gift from my colleague Keely, and it's covered in Dachshunds wearing striped sweaters. It's the best mag I've ever seen, and it's the best mag you've ever seen as well. But thank you so much for sticking till the end of this video. I really appreciate your company. I will leave my Instagram on screen in case you'd like to follow my creations more in real time and chat on there. I'll say bye for now, and I hope to see you in the next video.